How do you do, everybody? I wish I could be there yesterday. I wish I could be there today, but again, I have not left my house since November. It's a bad joke, but either way, what I wanted to do in class today is just talk about power. Because before we went on Thanksgiving break, we learned about the biggest debates at the Philadelphia Convention, and that's the Great Compromise, which is the power of Congress and how it's laid out. And the other one was, what kind of power should the government have in regulating the economy? What I want to do this week is get right to the basics of how our government works. This is like the big pivot point in our class. Um, and I wanted to start off with the legislative branch. And what I really wanted to do is have everybody write down, like, if you were going to create a superhero, what kind of powers would it have? Just think about that question for a second, because it's a great way to think about how the people who created our government thought about giving government power. So we have this textbook assignment, and it's all about the legislative branch. And you'll see that there's another assignment that's published today as well. It's about the executive branch, but I really just want you to focus on this one. Um, this is the legislative branch deep dive. If you really just want to answer these questions, my advice to you is to watch the video where I literally read to you. I'll play a little
All
bit.
right. Welcome to the Big Fat Legislative Branch Deep Dive. This is lesson 15, or as I like to call it, how the framers resolved the conflict about the powers of the legislative branch.
Yeah, it's a fun lesson because when we, as Americans, are figuring out what our government can do, like I can dive into the history of it because this was also up for debate. And it very much has to do with large states and small states and northern states and southern states that wanted Congress to have different powers over them. So there was a lot of debate about power at the Philadelphia Convention, specifically about the legislative branch, because this branch is the one that is supposed to be stronger than the other ones. But as we'll find out, there are certain powers that we really don't want to give and concentrate into one particular branch. And this textbook assignment goes over things like enumerated powers, which are specific powers that are listed. This is what Congress can do. But the other fun one are the general powers of Congress, the general welfare clause and the necessary and proper clause. I want you to focus on that because um, down here there is a short answer question about enumerated powers. This is a question where I'm like, okay, look at these specific powers. Which ones do you think are most important to you? What are they? These are the powers that are specifically listed in Congress. There's imposing and collecting taxes, regular borrowing money, regulating commerce, establishing post offices, declare war, raise and support an army. Those are the enumerated powers that are specifically listed. However, this is where we get weird because it really all depends on what you believe, you as a person, and it's the general powers. The general welfare states that Congress has the ability to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. And then the necessary and proper clause says the United States Congress has the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying out the other powers of the Constitution. So, one thing I want you to do here is think about what is necessary and proper to you. What is the common good to you? That's the general welfare clause. Because those general powers are very vague. What does that mean? There's legal scholars that have tried to answer this question. The framers of the Constitution tried to answer this question. The Supreme Court has historically given us clarification on this, But the question here is, why do some people think the necessary and proper clause and the general welfare clause give Congress too much power? And it really all depends on you thinking about, what does the common good look like? What should government be able to do? What should government not be able to do? Because it's these general clauses that really are very vague. And some people believe that that gives Congress too much power. So the goal for today is to get to know the legislative branch. And after that, if you want to start to tackle the executive and judicial branch textbook assignment, you go right ahead and do that. But I want you to think about Congress first. So, anyways, that's it. Be safe today, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow talking more about power, baby. All right, see you later. Bye.